Everybody. This is our 11th study together. Let's open with a word of prayer. Holy God, we thank you. May we have a clearer understanding of our humanity, the purpose for our creation, our relationship with you, our environment, and one another. Bless us, we ask and pray in Jesus' holy name. Amen. In our study yesterday, we were talking about the change of environment, which was a consequence of sin. I can't remember what conclusion we came to in an earlier study, but if we said something incorrect, we can correct it. I've left some of the board work intact, but I've erased some portions and made a summary here in the left-hand corner, which you can't currently see. And that's study number 10. So we tried to address a number of issues yesterday, and it seemed to me that we weren't all in agreement. So I don't know if I asked the wrong question or people didn't understand, or we just have a different perspective of how the gospel operates and works. So maybe we can clarify that today. I've labeled the environment number 2. It wasn't a question that I asked yesterday, but I've put it as a question now. So this is from yesterday. So I'm asking the question. It's to do with the environment. We know there was a change. We know that. So the question is, was the change necessary? And on the board, it says, did God have to or want to change? That's talking about the environment. So I've put it on the digital board so you can see it. We know the history. The question is, was the change necessary or optional?
It's necessary.
Who said that? Oh, I hadn't asked yet, but we'll go with that. So Sylvie say necessary. Put your hands up if you think it's optional. 2 people. Put your hands up if you think it's optional. For people online, 3 people have said it's optional. Put your hands up if it was necessary. Okay, the vast majority of people here say it's necessary. Did you say something to me?
I go with the first ones.
Optional. Didn't this go? Necessary? Okay. Tell the others why they're wrong. Start by saying, you are wrong because. You won't do it.
You are wrong.
1 second. Carry on. Sorry, I can't get my thing.
You are wrong because if people who are sinful would stay in a sinless environment, it would last forever. Last presentation we learned people were immature and we had to change the environment to grow up.
Okay, I just want to add one bit. When it said we, she meant God. I think she meant God. God, God changed the environment. Yeah. Monica, tell us why it was necessary. You said necessary, yes? Yeah.
I thought about it again. Yesterday we said there would have been a different option how to deal with sin. God had another option to deal with sin. He would have. God didn't have to change the environment. Wanted to change the environment.
What's the options God has got?
When sin arises, he can either punish or restore.
If God heals the humans, God doesn't need to change the environment. Okay with that? If God wants to restore, does God have to change the environment? Okay. So if I summarize what Monica said, She said it's not necessary, but optional. But the optionality is based upon the following. We'll put punish. Maybe people don't like kill. No, I'm going to put kill. Option 1 is kill. Option 2 is, I'm going to put heal. And Monica said, that's the option Scott has got. But if you want to go for option 2, change is necessary. Is that, have I summarized it well? Sylvie, you said necessary. So can you explain that, please?
Because the previous environment thing was perfect. If it would have stayed like that, the footprint of sin would have not been as severe. Or as visible.
I don't want to press the point or develop it. But if you follow that thought process, Sylvie, you end up down the road of punishment. The thought processes and the steps will take you to the path of punishment. And what I want us to understand is that they are two completely different paths. For those who said it's optional, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Says that the wage of sin is death.
We don't quote scripture here except me. If we quote scripture, we can open the Bible, and then we would have to explain what those verses mean. I'm neither anti-Bible nor am I against reading scripture. The way I imagine these classes to operate I expect each of you to have read the Bible cover to cover and know it well. And as a minimum, the Conflict of the Ages series, Steps to Christ, Christ Object Lessons, and The Great Controversy. That's 8 Spirit Prophecy books. You should all have read those if you're going to come to classes like this. Because these classes will challenge your understanding of inspiration. And we should all know by now that the way the Bible is written is distorted. It's distorted by the mind of the author, which is not God. And therefore, we have to filter that through our ongoing understanding of increasing light, however you want to conceptualize that. I hope that helps, but it probably doesn't. I don't know if it does. Those people who said it's optional, did they have a different model than the one that Monica gave to us? So do all the other people agree with this model that Monica gave us? Yep. So I'm going to say it's not optional, but it's necessary. Even with this option that we have. And we answered that question yesterday. In theory, there is options. But in reality, there are no options. And the options are 1 and 2. We answered that question yesterday. Deniska has recapped already this morning. Can you explain that, Thomas? People say God can either kill the humans or to restore them. So there's options. 2. I have said, theoretically, there are 2 options. But yesterday we said, in reality, there is only 1 option. So I've asked if you can explain that, which should be a recap of yesterday. If you need help, I'll help you. So we have, it's here, but it's also here. It's this point and this point. This is the main one.
When God wanted to create people, and wanted to give them free will. So they are their counterpart. And they failed. God didn't have any other choice how to restore. No, sorry. There was no other option than to restore them. If he creates them again, the same thing would happen.
Good. When you corrected yourself, was that in the translation or from Thomas? Why did God create humans? It's a childish answer.
Was lonely.
Because they were lonely. Monica?
They were lonely, and he wanted to have they wanted to create a counterpart.
Sylvie?
I have a question. The angels were not enough for them?
Can you answer your own question?
It was a question because angels are also a counterpart.
So you can't answer your own question? Tell me why you think God created humans. Have a guess.
Yes, he didn't want to be alone, but there were also enough angels around him.
I don't want to get sensitive with people. I do not want to get sensitive with people. I don't want to be rude. But for most people, a dog is not enough compared to a human relationship. And that's pretty much the difference between an angel and a human. Dogs might stop you being lonely, but what can't they do? Don't take it too literally. You take you're taking it too literally. That's what Monica, sorry.
They can't be equal partners.
They can't enter into the full experience of a human being. because they're not of the same nature. I don't know if you call it elements or properties. Of human beings that angels do not possess. I think that's why. If we can, we have evidence for that, by the way. Which being is superior? Humans or angels? Which being is stronger? Angels or humans? Which ones are cleverer? Faster? Our problem is angels win on every metric. Despite all of that, humans seem the closest aligned to God. And that's by design. So hopefully we've answered this question now. There may be a choice to kill everybody. We've already said if God kills everybody, the two of them, God would have to start again. With the potential of loss. We're all Adventists. I'm going to say ish. English people know that. I don't know if anybody else does. We have another story. Maybe clever Protestants do. What's the other reason God can't kill the humans? If you kill the humans,
It would be against the character of God.
it would do, but not that.
Everybody would fear God.
Okay, everybody free. I like that.
In no great controversy. We win.
Did the translators hear that? I know. No, the translators didn't hear that.
Satan would win the great controversy.
Satan would win. What Satan had accused God of would have been confirmed. If you don't obey, metaphorically, if you stretch your wings, God will kill you. Because God is what? God is a tyrant, megalomaniac. God is wants to retain and retain power and control everything. How does Satan know that? God is a megalomaniac. How does Satan know God is a megalomaniac? Do, pe- do people not do people not know the answer? Or you just don't like putting your hands up and participating? I'm shy and I have to be here.
According to what happened in heaven.
What happened in heaven, Radka?
Satan rebelled against God and took angels with him.
No. You said yes or no?
Satan was not accepted when God they fled, so he was not given the honor. But that's why he was killed.
She heard somehow.
So Satan was, yes, was not accepted when God made some plans, and he
Carry on.
he felt excluded and accused God that was not fair, that he didn't get the honor. God doesn't want to share, yes, the honor with him.
Tamina? Your answer?
Satan wanted to promote it and he was not allowed to. His experience with God.
Thomas?
Satan interpreted God's law wrongly. That God was going to kill them. Before God ever did it.
Who's them?
Angels, but also people.
And which law did he misunderstand? Which one?
Law for people was not written then, but law in heaven was known, I think.
Sure, but which law? I'll leave it. So Satan wants power sharing, or to at least go a little bit higher. God refuses. Eve wants what? Power sharing, or to go a little bit higher. It's exactly the same dynamic. And all the angels are watching what God will do. Half the angels failed. With all the evidence that they have of God, they made the wrong decision. And now that same story is going to get repeated on earth with creatures that were meant to be superior. So this is another element of why God just cannot kill. It's not only that God was lonely, but now there's a war. I think people in the past have called it an information war. Or what we could call it was an influence war. If God kills the humans, God would look silly. God loses. The great controversy would have been lost right there. I don't want to use that argument. I don't really care about it, to be honest. It's not suitable for our discussion. That's why when we studied this yesterday, the argument that we used was the relationship one between the creator and the created. We used three words: loneliness, counterpart, and free will. One word. And when you take those three elements, your only option, I think, and we discussed yesterday, was option 2, to heal. Any questions? Esther?
Could you repeat the three words you just said?
Loneliness, counterpart, free will. Free will. Loneliness, counterpart, free will. Tamina?
God do strange things on this earth then.
So if we agree with what we've said so far, we've agreed that the only thing God can do is restore. We've agreed that yesterday we agreed, and we'll just recap now. I think it's already been stated earlier. Perfect people will call it environment one. What I don't want to call it is perfect environment. I don't think that's a helpful way to view it. Throughout inspiration, that's what you will be taught. And if you have listened to my presentations over at least the last 10 years, if or longer, I've consistently resisted the temptation to call this the perfect environment. Who knows why? Niska? Sabrina?
They didn't have a chance to mature in that
No.
environment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They didn't have a chance to mature in that environment.
My internet is unstable. Shall I switch? Okay, we're going to carry on, but I might switch Wi-Fi. Thomas?
There was a snake in that environment.
No. Joachim?
Boah. It depends on the object, which in this case is the human.
This is nothing to do with these studies. You have to go back into a lot of foundational work.
I think perfect is subjective. So it depends what perfect means. And for who?
Where does everybody want to go? To heaven. Why? Paula.
We imagine everything will be just so perfect. I don't know. Everyone has his own definition of perfect, I think.
What did Paula just do wrong? She used the word perfect. And I said, don't call it perfect. And that's why I didn't want to call it perfect. Because I don't think our version of heaven is correct. Tamina. Oh, you had your hand up, Ali. No. Anybody else? Maybe. So, there's perfect people and we have environment number one. What do you want to call them now? Stage two. What kind of people? Put your hand up. It's one word, shout out.
Imperfect.
Imperfect people. Broken people. They were perfect before. Now they're imperfect. You want to hold on to that?
Understanding is that they were created perfect, and if they didn't sin, they would keep growing in that perfectness. But sin made them imperfect.
Emma? First of all, do you agree with what she said? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you want to use the word imperfect?
I was going to say sinful.
So you don't like imperfect. So now you're going to say they're full of sin. Is that correct? So tell me which bits in Adam. Here he is. Tell me which bits are full of sin. I guess it's sin everywhere. Wait. You said full. So now tell me what you want to say.
That's why I agreed with Denise, that they would keep growing.
Before you explain, start from scratch, because you already see the hole that you've created for yourself. Because I thought you'd be able to help Deniska not get yourself into trouble.
I want to say the sin there is not full though. Sinful is not the perfect word.
No, translate, sorry. So you don't want to say sinful. So now you're going to say partially sin, not full of sin.
Imperfect's okay.
I'll still go with you. Imperfect, I think, means not perfect. All right? Here's Adam. And you said he's no longer perfect. So does that get you out? Something's changed. My speaker's changed. I have a battery, or I don't know what's gone wrong. Oh no, that one's okay. It's my my one, my earphones. Okay, I think we're okay. We're good. Okay, so this has fixed the problem for you now, you said.
Yes.
So you don't, so Adam is not full of sin,
No.
but he's not perfect now.
No.
Okay, there he is. Tell me which bit's not perfect. Forget that question. Tell me which bits are perfect. We'll do a bottom top analysis. God said Israel was sick from the head to the toe. We'll do it the other way around. Tell me which bits are perfect.
The body's still perfect.
So Adam is perfect. And now you've said Adam's brain is not perfect. Is that right?
Mind. Yeah.
Okay, so the brain is still perfect. So the body is perfect. The brain is perfect. So now you're going to say, I'm going to put brain here. And this then becomes a symbol of mind. Tell me what a perfect mind is.
One without sin.
Tell me what sin is. Don't say transgression of the law. unless you want to.
Disconnection from God.
So if you're disconnected from God yesterday, your mind is permanently not perfect. I think that's what you just said.
That disconnection is a choice.
It wasn't my question. If you disconnected yesterday, which you call sin, does it permanently damage the mind?
Yes, in this model.
So when Lucifer did something wrong in heaven, he then had an imperfect mind the next day. And if he did, how'd you fix it? Because Sylvie said the wages of sin is death. To cut a long story short, you got no way of fixing his imperfect brain now, his mind. If it's been permanently damaged. So you said the mind's not perfect today. You wake up tomorrow. Is the mind now perfect? You just said yes.
Yes.
And now you just said we had perfect people, one. And number two, you've got what kind of people?
It's still perfect.
They're still perfect. There's no change. I know that's difficult for people to accept. It goes against what you've been taught or read or believe. There has been some change. Perfect people who sinned. Tamina,
Has the will changed? They want?
the will is not something that you want. And no, the will hasn't changed. Simple. Monica?
What changed is the relationship
With whom?
with God and between themselves.
We'll stick with God because we don't care about themselves. The people are the same. Environment one. Did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
God created humans perfect and had everything. Consciously chose sin. God's plan was that they were perfect and
Entscheiden uns bewusst für die Sünde.
that they would have everything and they would be again restored to that.
Oh, sorry, I finished. Good. Perfect people, we'll call it perfect environment. What were these perfect people doing? Someone said something? We've got to wait for the mic if we're going to say something.
Perfect.
Number one. These perfect people in the perfect environment, what were they doing? Who said that? Oh, but you got your hand. I don't know if you got your hand up. Yeah, you don't? Perfect work? Perfect work?
They had a chance to grow
They were growing?
in harmony with God.
They were harmonious? Emma? They were harmonious? No? No? Learning?
Learning about God's character.
Learning? 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 Harmony?
The realization of God has changed.
No. They were perfect people, perfect environment. Perfect. Harmony? Harmony?
Do their experiences and they mature.
Weren't they? Were they not sinning? Don't care. They sin in perfection in a perfect environment. They were sinning. I'm not asking you to see that. I'm saying you already know that. That's why we had to do all of this. There's no sinfulness or imperfection and all of that stuff. What environment was heaven? Perfect, you want to call it? And what's going on there? The biggest sin you've ever seen. And who's doing all the sinning? Angels, Lucifer, Satan. So when Ellen White says little by little, is she saying he gets brain damage in slow motion? So these are not new concepts. At least formally, they're 7 years old in the movement. So the reason we need to understand this, so that we understand why the environment has changed. And what the situation of the humans were and are. So that's why I said from stage 1 to stage 2, they're the same people. There's no creation going on. Are you okay with that now, Esther? Yeah. Their cells don't change. The composition of their mind hasn't altered. And if we say that the mind doesn't get permanently damaged, they're the same people who have sinned. And that demands an environmental change. And someone said, I can't remember who it was now, they said what the change was, and it was the right answer. So what actually changed between 1 and 2 was the change in relationships. Not between human to human. Human to God. We don't have the time to discuss why that change happened, but it did. Once that change happens, then things are going to change in the environment. When we did it here, we said, why? It's because of sin. But that really isn't a good explanation. It's correct, but it's not a good explanation. If you read Patriarchs and Prophets, the first book, I think, Eve has sinned. She comes to Adam. And what does Adam think after she's told him what's happened? He says to himself, Mina,
Lonely.
Esther,
He was upset with himself that he left her alone.
they're all correct answers. Stick to the subject.
Relationship between Adam and Eve was now distorted.
They're all they're all true, but it's not the answer. We'll go with Paula first, then Emma.
Adam blamed God.
Emma?
Thinks Eve's going to die now.
Okay, so now I'm a bit nervous. And I don't want to pull up the passage, so someone else can do it. Natalie? What did Adam say to himself?
Was he worried about having a new wife, having to have a new wife? No.
She said, I've done all of these things. She was really happy. He realized what she had done. And when he looked at her, he said, she looks the same. Hasn't done any damage. He can see there has been no change. I'm pretty sure that's in there. I hope I didn't make it up. That's all I'm saying. There's no change. There are consequences. And the consequence, I don't think he knows it yet. The full effect. But what several of you have answered correctly. He said, she looks the same. She's done wrong. Even if he doesn't know what the wrong is. And now, what does he know is going to happen? Several of you gave that answer. He works out in his brain. Now I know what's going to happen. Esther, what's going to happen? Sorry.
Sarah.
That's the consequence. He will lose her. And he's back in the same situation as God is. If he loses her, he'll have to get a new wife. And history will repeat. So he doesn't know what to do. He does the most common sense thing. To maintain the relationship. which is what we all know. He eats the fruit as well. So all of this guesswork that a lot of us, I guess, maybe disagreed with. These perfect people weren't growing, they were sinning. There's no change afterwards. Someone asked, God is law. Someone stated that. I said, what do you have to do? The word? It's on the board. You have to deconstruct. For Adam, we have to do an MRI or brain surgery. We have to deconstruct Adam and check each element to see what change there was. And no matter how hard you look, you'll see that there's no change. What has changed? The relationship with God. And a little version of that was between Adam and Eve. We have to think them at a parable level, not as a continuum. As we close now, has anybody got any questions that we can tidy up? Monica?
So they were perfect people in perfect environment and were sinning there. Now at the end of the world, we are imperfect people in imperfect environment, and we're supposed to not be sinning.
Is that a statement or a question? Or just observation? Good. Anyone else? Good. I hope we're all okay. We're together still. Are we together, Emma? No. I didn't understand that. I was technically correct. I said number one was perfect people. Number two was blank. I said, what kind of people? People isn't the word. It would be what goes with the people. Yeah? Yeah. Someone said sinful people. Someone said imperfect people. And I said perfect people. After we addressed that and agreed with it, I gave context, which is not a definition, when I said who had sinned, because I don't need to put that there. I was trying to be true to my question. We didn't get enough time to resolve the disagreement whose fault was it? Two options. Shout them. We had a disagreement in study number 10. And we haven't resolved that yet. Because people disagreed with me. And I'm still not clear why. Esther? Nothing? Anybody else? Tamina?
The restoration look like?
I only want to recap or answer stuff that we've done, not move forward. I want to make sure that we're all on the same page dealing with these difficult concepts. They seem difficult to me because when they're first discussed, they seem contradictory to inspiration. And it takes some effort to try to show that they firstly are correct and in agreement with inspiration. If we're all good, we can close. Let's pray. Holy God, we thank you for your goodness and watch care over us. When humans sinned, when they chose to separate from you and go their own way, when each of us have done that in our own lives, you chose, you decided not to abandon me. In my foolishness, in my ignorance, you patiently waited to restore me, for which I am thankful. May this be each of our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen. Just a reminder to people online. A reminder to people online. I've lost my online translator. Reminder to those online. We won't have a class We won't have a class today. It's preparation day for us here. And we will be having baptism, foot washing, and communion. And we'll meet everybody tomorrow on our Sabbath. Thank you.